I tried to open the
Good,
Twitch stream and I'm getting an
good
ad.
morning, everybody, and welcome to the accelerated meta test for April. One of the final ones for this meta. We are going hot with the elevation previews, and today with me we have myself, Cephalopod Wizard, and that's your
Hi, I
cue.
I guess I'll just go first. I'm Manuel. Um, yeah. Oh, there we go. And I'm relatively new to Netrunner. About 2 years ago, I came in first for the first time.
And we're glad
And
to have
I
you.
am Thrantar, and I'm delighted to be back and casting again for another AMT. It's always a pleasure to be here and to be casting and see all of the new and exciting accelerated meta developments that we have been testing these many months.
All right, it's round one is already underway. So if we want to take a look at a game to watch really quick.
Yeah, 1 second. Realized I forgot to actually pull up ASOPs, so I'm grabbing that really quickly.
I do see someone on Thunderbolt Armaments. Would we be interested in seeing what they could possibly be up to?
I'd be up. Sounds very interesting. I've tried to make a deck around
Um,
it once, and I kind of failed horribly. So
all right, I will hop in and ask. 1 second. Okay, looks like tables are still being made. We are waiting on tables.
And in a truly joyous turn of events, recent spoilers are
Table one.
absolutely filled with cephalopod robots. Truly, this is my favorite time of the previews. All right, looks like we are good to stream.
very nice. I am excited to see what our runner and corp have in store for us.
Yes, Ellie, I've seen it. I did not have time to read the article. I should have woken up earlier. Very irresponsible of me.
Not sure the article was up earlier. Which article? We just got the spoiler for poetry, right?
And humanoid resources.
Yeah.
Humanoid resources earlier this morning.
Humanoid resources, auto campaign, and the new ID.
Yes.
I have read the articles, very interesting articles, go into detail about the process of making the cards, of the playtesting in specific. Very interesting, and I am very excited for those cards.
I just want to shout out, honestly, as a name, humanoid resources is amazing.
Oh, definitely. I 100% agree. Seems the game is starting. Or at least the game has been opened.
All right, we're
Alright.
getting into game. We are seeing here Asa versus Thunderbolt.
The corp has not taken a mulligan. Sounds like they have a good hand.
So I mean, thinking about Thunderbolt, restricting anything about specifically about Thunderbolt, is this going to be a case of using the identity for just a little bit more tempo? Obviously, there's a couple of neat things that Thunderbolt does, like add a potentially conditional ETR onto, for instance, Tithe on Res. But this can make, especially early face checks, a little bit more awkward. For instance, if this is a tithe res, as an example, that end the run unless the runner trashes one, the runner has no cards to trash. It just reads end the run. You can res a tithe here to protect Rashida, or a gatekeeper works too.
Yeah. And here, I guess the credit doesn't get paid. Oh no, that doesn't even cost a credit, right? But it is not a destroyer or RIP, so the gatekeeper fires normally.
Gatekeeper fires. Seeing Gatekeeper, the first thing that always comes to mind these days is we're going to be seeing the Your Digital Life with it for that sort of explosive burst economy. Another interesting thing of note here is we are seeing Banhar come down for Asa. And Banhar, incredible resource, very much a staple in the meta, but also you're spending one net per subroutine, and Banhar doesn't really care what the subroutine is, which means that running into Thunderbolt, especially if Thunderbolt can build a server that has this AP or Destroyer Ice to res, as much as the strength boost won't matter against Banhar, the extra net damage can start making math breakpoints look potentially a little awkward.
Well, if nothing else, the Corp cannot keep them out with that banker at least.
Mhm.
That is definitely a downside. Well, for the Corp at least. Oh?
Yes.
What do we find in server 1?
At a certain extent, Gatekeeper was protecting a working prototype, so we're potentially seeing some additional res, and this makes me almost going to see some D-res synergy as well, which is a approach to sort of rebuy the Thunderbolt triggers, get that extra sub value again and again. And I'm sort of also, this could be very interesting to see what Ace is running as far as a real breaker suite. Because this is the type of Begamot with Lamb sort of rig that we've seen, then adding an extra sub and adding an extra strength do honestly very little, because Begamot is going to have more than enough strength to murder any sentry anyways, and
it is a flat 1 credit to break.
And it is a flat 1 credit to break them all. But I've also seen experimentations with running Revolver in some of these very recursion heavy packages, which I'm not necessarily expecting here, but I have seen lists where, like, how you are breaking sentries, and to be clear, most AP or Destroyer Ice is sentries. I believe there might be some AP Ice that's not sentries around somewhere, but I expect most AP or Destroyer Ice to be sentries. And if you're trying to get through them entirely with the limited uses of a revolver, even if you're augmenting your revolvers with symbol chips, with labor rights, with other sort of recursion tools, even if you might have enough total counters among all of your revolvers to manage this over the course of the game, having to replay a revolver every 2 breaks, every 3 breaks, instead of every 3 breaks, every 4 breaks, can really tax your clicks and your credits over time. Even if...
does have a cost.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to reiterate that Revolver doesn't need to have a cost. You are very right.
Mm-hmm.
Revolver's not free, but please continue. What did you say before I rudely cut you off?
Just to say, even if there are enough total counters on the revolver, like on the revolvers in the deck, between potential symbol chips, between potential labor rights, between potential action epilogues, between potential privileged accesses and retrieval runs and Katorga breakouts, to potentially break all of the extra Thunderbolt subs, it's still taxing out all of these resources. And taxing out the clicks spent playing them, installing them, recurring them, whatever. So we are seeing both players are taking some very aggressive lines here. Suda on the aces is down at 0 credits. Tyrande playing Thunderbolt down to 0 credits, although there is this working prototype that is being charged. Possibly could be clicked for 3, or possibly looking for the full click with the 5 hosted counters to gain the 6 and bounce the resource.
Which at this point would be the banker, which does sound like a very big deal. Keeping them out of the gatekeeper, or at least having them pay to get the banker back, seems like a delay.
It certainly is a delay, but also at previously 0 credits, so we just see a 3 counter Fermenter being trashed for 6, which is, I think, the point in time where you start being excited about Fermenter. Fermenter with 2 virus counters is not a good econ card. A Fermenter with 3, you're not necessarily excited, but you did some things, you got some value. Certainly when you start getting to 4 or 5, but then you're going, yeah, now we're doing something.
And at that point, the corp might actually be tempted to start to purge. So it becomes a game of do I collect, or does the corp purge? So
we do see an excellent use of Bahia bans to come in and challenge the working prototype. Also taking the opportunity to trash a Metagarm Skunkworks while visiting.
And here comes the second ice. Banker alone will no longer get into server 1, I guess.
That's true. Banhar, however, can certainly still threaten R&D here. And there's also a potentially interesting line counting R&D, and then also there's just great HQ access here. We've seen 1 Chastushka so far, but I certainly would expect Aces to be on the full set of 3, and that could do truly a lot of damage.
Especially since HQ is still entirely undefended.
Mm-hmm.
The question becomes, does our corp not have the ice? I see 2 anvils in the bin, although I can believe that they have been trashed by using the Chatushka.
I would imagine they were trashed on the first Chatushka, but I wasn't.
2 cards came from the top of R&D during that.
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense. I assume one of those at least would have been placed on HQ otherwise. Oh. I guess the corp decides that they have nothing really to be afraid about in HQ, and instead place the ice on R&D.
So certainly the runner is at 0 credits, which is not really threatening the ability to play Chashushka.
That is a good point.
We have in the vulnerability audit from the table. A bit of an effort to sneak something out that unfortunately appears to have not quite succeeded.
That is, I guess, why you check the cards that are on the table.
I don't think vulnerability audit is the punish I'm expecting. I think I'm much more expecting a Rashida resin fire as the punish for not checking random face down servers.
But I assume that the runner will take the agenda as well.
I mean, there's no additional cost to steal. The runner has no choice.
That is a good point. That is a good point. I guess the corp is going a bit more wide right now. Here comes the tithe with the extra and the run subroutine and the extra strength that you mentioned. Hmm. Rashida just. Oh.
Like another vulnerability audit.
The banker just gets through anything, I guess.
Banner gets through any one ice.
Yeah.
As much as 3 cards is sometimes a little bit more than you really want to pay to walk through a tithe. Sometimes it's a trade you're happy making for a 3-point agenda. Now, the thing that I'm wondering here is we're seeing vulnerability audits, which are, I think, a very interesting agenda that we don't see a whole lot. 4-3 is a very interesting stat line. And especially thinking about vulnerability audit, I'm expecting some sort of fashion to never advance the vulnerability audit. I'm expecting potential seamless launch, for instance, out of this Thunderbolt list. Seamless, pretty good card in general. I think very
I would
reasonable.
assume so as well. We will see. That is the run on archives. So we will
Archives,
see
yep,
if there
third.
has any seamless in there. Maybe we are vindicated in the idea that there are seamless in this deck.
Yep, we see one seamless in archives.
And we can assume where there's one seamless, there will probably be at least 1 or 2 more. Or does any deck ever run a one-off seamless launch?
We're also seeing 5 ice in archives, which is it's definitely stressing out the corp's ability to fully protect themselves. We are seeing some very interesting inclusions. We're seeing a half run,
Indeed.
which is a very frequent combination in OB with the Stavka synergy, but I haven't seen all that much outside of the OB synergy. Echo coming down, being scored. Both players are still very, very broke.
At least HQ has now some sort of defense with that one ice. I see they are recurring the Chatushkas and Ashen Epilogue.
I think fairly traditional choices.
Yeah. The Ashen
Like
especially
these
makes sense.
Katushkas are not very far away. Touchy balls have very nice res here, I think. Going to be pretty good for the corpse economy, and a single access is probably not that impactful.
The trash. Oh, all right. Never mind. That is the last agenda. And yeah, with his Dagodon doing the D-Res idea, sadly not being able to score it.
Indeed, well, very well played to both our players.
I definitely agree.
I agree, prototypes can be a very, very scary card.
It is a lot of money and the shuffling back of the resource. Oh, it is put on the top of the stack, isn't it? Of the
Yes.
R&D.
Well, but
It is
that's
not
still a
quite
click to
shuffling
draw.
back. A click to draw and a click to reinstall
And a click to reinstall,
whatever
yes.
credits.
But like as far as just being an income card goes, I'd frequently rather have Regolith in a lot of circumstances. If I need to pay to res cards to get my power counters on working prototype, like that's cutting into the profit I'm actually gaining, and it's not giving me more than Regolith would.
That is a good point. I guess you can both click Regolith and working prototype multiple times a click, multiple times a turn. Although you do have to actually come up with the power counters for the
working
prototype.
Exactly. And having those power counters involves resing stuff, and resing stuff frequently
generally, yeah,
involves money.
Although you spend
next week where I play my deck consisting entirely of rhymes. Rhymes, spin doctors, Rafitas, like you can find zero cost things to res. I'm gonna res my NGO front. But it's certainly
it's not what you want to do necessarily.
Indeed. All right, it looks like we have who's still playing.
We've got about 15 minutes left in the round. 2 tables still up.
Do we check out one of them?
Yeah, I'm gonna go poke my head in on. So I mean, table 3 has already reported.
Table 3 has reported, so we are watching table 5.
Yeah, 1 second, I'm asking.
Makes sense.
So how about them octopus robots, huh?
I assume that was the the octopus robots. I did not until now realize what you meant with that, and now I feel stupid. I have to agree. I also love that the octopus robots apparently are called the Ottos, which
Okay, we are good to stream on table 5.
Let's
nice.
go.
All right, so we're seeing a pretty advanced board state here between Hosiko Hero and Super Heavy Logistics.
We can see a bunch of 3-2 agendas already scored and stolen, with an SDS drone deployment in the mix. So I assume it is some sort of fast advance list.
Potentially, there's a couple interesting things I'm noticing here. Immediately, one is that Ob is completely broke and has 1 res dice.
Oh.
Now, there is a Sphigator Excavator, which can certainly help solve these problems, both by trashing cards to go find things, like trashing a Hollow Man for, I don't know, a Tithe or an Ice Wall is potentially an angle somewhere.
Although, what about if we trash the Hortum to instead get a Regolith Mining Nest? Assuming there's still one in the deck.
But Hortum doesn't decay into Regolith. Hortum's a 4. Regolith is 2 to res.
Regolith. Right, I am very good at math, apparently.
But also, I think trashing the pretty strong ice protecting HQ is perhaps not the most urgent thing on this board state.
You make a very valid argument. They are also running with the turtle, so the Autumn is especially good here. Cannot break subroutines by using AI icebreakers.
So this will be much more important once the Amakua has 4 strength. At the moment, Plural cannot break subroutines on the Hordem with the Amakua for the simple reason that the Amakua has 0
No
strength.
strength. Although they could get there within 1 turn, simply by running archives twice and then leeching through
There's
the
2 Mavs in
archive.
archives.
Are there? That is a very good point. Something to check first, I assume. Oh?
A little bit surprised by this extract on the Hordem.
Well, it is money, I guess. And what 3 cost? Well, there comes the Mavirus, which then can be changed into a Regolith, I guess. And now with the money, you can re-protect HQ.
I would have considered just trashing one of these face down ice that there isn't necessarily the money to res still. On 9 credits, I think there's. I think that the chance that on 9 credits, Icarus can res all 5 of these ice is very low.
That is true.
It's technically possible. There are 2 bites that exist. I gave Rhyme a shout out earlier. And there's Ice Wall, there's Tithe, there's Descent these days. But I certainly expect most ice to be in the 3 to 4 range.
Oh? We are seeing the run on the Mavirus, which is trash for 2 costs.
I'm not sure what the pick here is. If there's Regolith available, Regolith for money is certainly an option, but it seems very possible that server 3 has an agenda, so potentially not looking to overinstall that. And okay, Maryland, I like the Maryland line for money. It's a very resilient card. I think if Hoshiko comes and trashes the Maryland, you shuffle it back and you go, okay, this was fine, I guess.
Trashing the Maryland does cost both a click and 3 credits for the runner. Well, 1
Exactly.
click to run, but that is still a click. In either case, you do tax the runner, or you do get some credits yourself, which the corp is fairly desperate for at the moment, I guess.
And I think there's actually a potentially perfectly reasonable world where Icarus is looking at a line of, turn begins, take 2 from the Maryland, trash the Maryland with the Svigator, go get, an Ice Wall potentially. And just shore up a little bit somewhere. We are seeing the return of the Stargate pressure.
Indeed we are. Sandstone puts the corp to 6 credits. That is also not a break.
Of course, I really wouldn't mind seeing Plural just go hang out and just go on a sightseeing trip, go see the Svigator Excavator, go see the Maryland campaign, take the Turtle World tour.
True. Although that would potentially be quite expensive if we actually plan to buy something there. Another check. That is the last click as well. So no world tour, I guess.
It's certainly a little bit potentially spooky. In some ways, you can save yourselves from some face checks with the crew. In other ways, that leaves you tagged, and that's potentially awkward. Seeing a big logjam show up here. That logjam
Yeah.
is just firing.
That is 2 credits for the corp. So I guess it was only a 4-credit logjam res.
Yep. And now the server's looking pretty secure right now. And again, there's potential lines of take 2 credits from the Maryland, crash the Maryland to the Spigator.
Any chance that this is game? We are on 2 credits, plus 2 from the Maryland, plus 3 from the excavator. That does put us on 7.
I mean, this is very easily game because as if protocol exists, and the runner has no cards.
That is true as well. They got a hearts and minds instead. Was not a agenda.
Okay, so this Hearts and Minds is looking pretty spooky. Like this is threatening an SDS score in server 3 right now.
Yeah. And I just now noticed that there are 0 cards in grip and 0 cards in the stack. So it is a game of, can you do anything with the basic action? 13 credits is a lot, though. Things can be done with that. The only question is, can they get you into server 3?
Well, there is DJ Steve, the net's best DJ, or at least most popular DJ, honestly, these days, ever since Noise retired and took his turntable with him.
What are your thoughts on Steve actually leaving Standard, by the way?
Well, I'm thinking he's gone.
That much is true.
I think it's good to change. Yeah, it wasn't the most exciting when Steve just points at 2 daily casts and asks, which one do I get?
Yeah. the like... It's... Yeah.
Steve is very cool in concept, but turns out you just always do the same thing.
So I do think it's kind of neat in that, you know, we think about you know, shell games, we think about 3-card Monty, and there's like classic, you know, where's the ball type of scams, and you know, street cons, and like one of the keys for 3-card Monty is that you can't ever actually pick the right card. It's just not there. The fact that Steve's like, here, have a choice, and then it turns out the choice is gamble or gamble, is in some ways excellent on a narrative standpoint, where like you get to think you're getting to play this clever game, and you're not. Steve was in control of the game the entire time, and you did not have a real choice to make. Whichever card you picked would not be the card you were looking for, because the card you were looking for was simply up Steve's sleeve, or wherever, palmed. In his lap. Whatever.
Indeed. All right, we see that all of the servers are safe. The sandstone has been trashed, but the envelopment has defended it. Although the hearts and minds and the excavator are both gone, so can the corp score here? They will probably need a moment to make the money for it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Of course, yeah. Unless they pull out the red level clearance here and score the 3-2, of course.
I think if there was any line where the runner trashes the hearts and minds to prevent that fast advance, and keeps the Spigator to farm turtle counters on, but I don't think that works because then you crash the Tranquility home grid and activate Hollow Man for the fast advance. So I think that was just kind of a hard fork at that point.
Oh,
SDS coming down, being scored with a slash and burn, actually. Very nice touch.
and that was the game.
And Ob Super Heavy Logistics takes it over Hoshiko Shiro. Scoring out.
Well,
And I
if
believe
you're
that
down to
concludes
your...
round one.
So it would seem.
Well, that's going to take us to the end of round one. I believe we have about... What do we have? Yeah, round one ending in 30 seconds. I imagine we'll get the round two paired pretty quickly now.
And we can get right back into the games, I guess.
I
what do
believe
you know?
viewers
Round
are
two
allowed
is
to
paired.
advance the round early if everyone has done their matches, although I will admit that is not something I've ever examined in great detail.
I guess the problem is if you do that, there is a risk of someone not catching that, someone ending very early and being away from the PC for whatever reason for minutes there.
Yes, but at the last G&K I was at had 6 people and we were all physically on location.
Fair enough. That makes it very okay then, I guess, especially if everyone agrees.
Yes. All right, so we've got pairings up. Are there any of these matchups you're particularly interested in?
Let's see. Oh, I love Atea. I just hope that they are playing Atea with Surveyor. But if they do not, then I'm deeply disappointed in them. Shall we see what they play?
Do not think this is going to be Surveyor Atea. Kevin is actually in my local meta, and I've played with them a decent bit. He deeply, deeply loves playing Atea and has multiple Atea lists built. I'm not quite sure which this is going to end up being, but I am happy to look and find out.
Very nice. That is table 2.
All right, I'll poke my head in and ask. Although we'll have to be waiting a few more minutes as for people to finish trickling in and joining lobbies.
Certainly.
All right, so while we're waiting, I'm just gonna take taking a quick look at what we're seeing played. Runner side, by far the most popular runner is Hoshiko. Out of the 12 players, we have 5 on Hoshiko and another 2 on Asa. So we are back to classic orange dominance. Orange making up slightly more than half the field. There are also 2 Arasanas, 1 Kit representing the Shapers, and then for Krim, we have 1 Ken Express Tenma and 1 Mercury. Looking over at the corp side for 1 second, the most popular factions corp side are Jinteki, with 4 decks split 2 Ag, 1 PE, 1 Atea, and has Viroid split also with 4 decks split 2 Sports, 1 PD, 1 Thunderbolt. Coming in third for corp popularity is Wayland, representing 2 Built to Last and 1 OB Super Heavy Logistics Extract Export XL. Also, that OB alt art, although it's not tournament legal, is just so great. The one with the Excel spreadsheet, it's a very nice touch. Unfortunately, not tournament legal due to outside note concerns. And then we have 1 lone representative for NBN. That's Ant1 playing Near Earth Hub Broadcast Center.
I'm assuming that will most likely be some sort of asset spam, as Near Earth Hub is one to do.
I, for one, am looking forward to someone cracking Near Earth Hub Glacier.
Yeah.
Alright, we appear to have gotten into game. We are waiting for the timer to officially start, but we're looking at this matchup of Hoshiko Shiro versus Atea. IP recovery.
I must say when I first read IP recovery there, for the longest time I was of the impression that they were recovering IP addresses instead of, clones. So that was a news flash when I heard about that.
It's a very good name. It's very just understated and sinister.
Very much so.
It's also like I love sort of the implicit framing of it. And sort of the way it just intrinsically rejects the idea of clones as people, as beings with their own thoughts and feelings. No, there are intellectual property, and we want it back.
I mean, we have heard more of that framing in the Buddha short story on the No Signal Games blog.
Mm-hmm.
Very chilling story. And
All
we
right,
just see just a few installs.
Everyone playing nice and fast. Taya starting with Hedge Ice Centrals. We go on Gamble Earthrise and a bit of drawing.
I also saw run into archives there. Just
yes.
to flip the ID.
I'll get the ID flip.
Very nice.
We see a spin coming down to help with some tempo ice installs. Spin's a very interesting card in Atea. Atea often ends up with wanting to install cards in one of its remotes to sort of fortify the others, and spin can be an excellent card to install in your off remote. But sometimes your off remote is already can be a little bit clogged already, and then so we might actually see this might be an Adrian install here, for instance, or potentially Maverick. Both great ways to sort of install in your off remote and then put an ice in your main remote, and sort of get that savings discount on the install, and really ramp up. There are, I think, a bunch of different ways that you can take Atea. It's a very interesting idea that we have seen.
Boto res here. Fairly
in
expensive.
Yep.
Although potentially very painful. We see a cleaver that could break the Boto, and that does break the Boto.
Breaks 2 subroutines on the Boto. Breaks the net and one of the ETRs. Electing to let the other optional trash to ETR fire, which Kevin selects to take.
And then a basic draw and a basic credit. Yeah, we see the triple advance. The timely public release.
One of the signature agendas for Atea, this runner turn install option lets Atea do so many weird timing tricks and create scoring windows that just don't and can't exist for basically any other corp. With lines like install ice, after the runner's fourth click, you install ice in a server, throw down the agenda in the other server, and then seamless advance to have never advanced an agenda that you would never even install.
Yes, that sounds like a cool trick. I'm questioning. Is there a what's the name of the upgrade of the grid that gives you the advancement counters at the start of turn?
Yeah, Lacosta.
Lacosta, yes. Any Lacostas in this deck?
In this deck in particular, I don't know. Kevin has a bunch of Atea lists. Some are on Lacosta, some are not on Lacosta.
We see a run here directly into server 2. If that is an agenda, the Atea will probably cry a bit. Oh?
So there's some options here because you can actually. Yeah, okay, that's. That is a Lacosta being installed, being trashed. Certainly a very dangerous thing to let the runner have.
Indeed. So I guess my question about Lacosta did answer itself.
I think we can confirm that there is at least one Lacosta in this list. We know exactly where it is. It's in archives.
That is where it is always most useful for the runner.
But what if you want to play what is that criminal card that 419 used to play where you pick a card and then you say what type it is, and if you're right, you gain 5 credits?
I have never seen that card in my entire Netrunner career.
Someone will tell me in chat. I'm sure of this.
That's a fair point. I guess another card that I love to use to get the installs on the second remote for Atea is Voba Ozzetti.
Voba's very fun.
Credentials.
The influence cost is a little bit high. Frequently, I find Adrian to be perfectly functional. So we do see some interesting things coming here from
Hoshiko with Odor.
Pico, Alice playing out this array. Very interesting killer. Currently, the ability to break any number of Sentry subroutines for 0 is very, very good eventually, and with the turbine, eventually starts looking a little bit more reasonable. But even now, this is already looking at a mere 5 credits to break Anansi. Actually, how many virtuals are there right now? That's 1 virtual, 2 virtual, 3 virtual. Even now, this is a mere 3 credits to break Anansi, which is it's pretty hard to do better than 3 credits to break Anansi. There are a couple methods of doing it, but that is a very good rate.
I agree. Especially when I think back to the one tunnel vision deck I once made and paid 8 credits for an Anansi. 3 sounds like a very good deal at that point.
This is also 3 for Seisenton right now. Which we look at and say, yes, this is great. The problems are in some of the other matchups where you look at this rig and go, all right, well, I've installed a 4-cost killer, and then I've installed a 4-cost support program to make my killer better, and I'm still spending 3 to break this drafter.
That is a pain. Also, I think we glossed over it a bit, but the runner did just score 2 different agendas, while the corp managed to get a Project Yadigi Uda as well.
Conflicting to res Anansi here, which is a little interesting. 8 credits to res is very expensive for not a terribly expensive break. With especially now that there's this ice carpet support down, doesn't matter for the Anansi, can potentially matter a lot for this Bodo actually. A very key breakpoint, taking the Bodo down to 5 strength, saving 2 credits on those cleaver breaks.
And they did not trash the La Costa grid there.
Tatubola being rest and swapped. Getting
Allowing
another
an extra
install down. I suspect that's the Tatubola back on the outside of server 2 now, although I can't quite be certain. And as much as we talk about, yes, this is a very efficient rig for breaking things. Hoshiko can break this Boto for 2 credits, can break this Anansi for 3 credits. That's 5 credits, and there are still 2 more ice to get through on server 2. Like this, if you stick enough ice on a server, which Atea can do, Atea can stick 4 ice, 5 ice, 6 ice even sometimes.
I think I once got up to 9 ice, although at that point I probably lost 2 centrals.
Yeah. On a server, like you can tax out the ability of even these incredible turbine rigs to make repeated runs on that remote.
Although we have been seeing some remote pressure here, another 2-pointer stolen.
Mm-hmm.
The second timely public release is gone.
Yep. Although as much as this server 2 is, I think, approaching the point where Alice is perhaps not interested in trying to interact with it, there is the problem that R&D has 1 ice, and there's a twinning, and there are sources of drip credits with these paladins, with this mystic, with this Kaiko. It's very possible that Alice can look to simply lock R&D here and never let an agenda filter into the hand. And this Rashida pop here is actually really big.
Because it
potentially
allows
to
the
stop that
agenda
in some
to be
ways.
there. Indeed.
Because this is a chance to find the agenda, potentially get the agenda into server 2 right now. Even like put a install in server 3, put another ice in server 2, put the agenda in server 2, and especially if there's something like an Anoetic, or even if you're willing to roll the dice on an Adrian, or like potentially install a Lacosta here, bluff the agenda with the face down Lacosta, and then plan to TPR in the agenda, especially if there's 5/3 access.
Although we still have the counter on the timely public release.
Exactly. Is the agenda does not actually have to go live in the server right now. This could be a Lacosta coming in to set up for the agenda coming in off the TPR. And the other thing that TPR can do here, which is very interesting in Atea, is TPR is HQ protection. Because if the runner doesn't run very early, you can let the runner set up, run here on HQ, right? And then, depending on what's in hand, before access, you can TPR an ice onto one of the remotes, and then install the agenda from hand off the Atea trigger to get the agenda out of HQ and safe.
Which at this point sadly did not quite matter. There was the last off-world office found, and this is the game. Hoshiko did take it.
Excellent. Twitch shouts out that the card I was thinking of was falsified credentials. Very fun little card.
Indeed. Maybe incentivizes you not to trash the upgrade that you just saw. Although at this point, probably no longer legal, right? Or is it legal still?
I think it's legal, through till the release of Elevation. I mean, when Elevation comes out, it's definitely rotating. But
I have not yet seen it before. At least not in Play Against Me. Or Play Myself.
Yeah, falsified credentials is still legal. I think one of the real issues that it has right now is part of the job that it had has mostly been eaten by Pinhole. Because like, what if the key things you could do, right, is you see the Glacier look at their 3i server, and they go install advanced, and you're like, if I run that and it's an NGO, I have spent 10 credits getting in, and then they pop the NGO and gained 8 credits, and I did absolutely nothing for these 10 credits. So you say falsified credentials, a name, asset, or whatever you thought the call was, and go, okay, it's an NGO. I'll take 5 credits. Or you go, it's not an NGO. It's a send a message. I guess I'll go steal it. But in many ways, this functionality is something that's partly replicated by Pinhole, which has more other applications where you're like, I wonder what that is. I'm just going to go pinhole it and poke it, and then I know. And
Eventually, you even get to trash it with that.
Yeah, you actually get to trash it with that. There are like cases where you'd rather have the money than have the trash because trashing things costs money. So there's an economic swing that way. But like, if you're like, I bet that's an anoetic, and you're like, all right, it's an anoetic. Well, I still can't get in. Okay. Where you're like, okay, I'm gonna pinhole that, trash the anoetic, and now I can actually run that server and go interact with it because I can't just be anoetic out of it. Offer some, additional utility. So that was table 2. That was Kevin versus Alice. Are there any of these other tables that are touting out to you as something you're interested in seeing?
I do not have the list of what these tables are in front of me, but remembering back, there was nothing specifically that caught my eye.
Let's see. All right. Table 6 is BTL versus Mercury. Table 1 is Ag versus Ken. Table 3 is Built to Last versus Hoshiko. Table 4 is Ag versus Ari. I think I'm kind of interested in Table 4, honestly. Let me go ask Table
I'm down.
4.
Sounds like a fun watch.
All right, we are good to spectate on Table 4.
Speaking of pinhole, I see it in the heap. I assume it has been made good use of. Also, that is one entire server I see. La Costa Grid, Anoetic Void, and some sort of mystery card. And Arestana's board is
I
nearly
presume at this
entirely
point that
empty.
it's either a Charlotte or potentially an agenda that's being slow cooked.
Yeah.
It is in absolutely no hurry here.
Which turn is this? This is turn 9. Turn 9, and our Arestana only just got amused with a Unity. There is a Slap Vandal. There is a Capellation. But there's also only one credit in the pool.
I haven't seen many cards go by. Looking at the bin, there's 2 Sybil chips in the bin. There's some money in the bin with a Coalescence, with a Muse. There's been a spec work, some fermenting, Creative Commission.
A Hush. All of the Hush.
Looking at the archives for a second, one thing I'm noting is that this is a Managarm Skunkworks being imported, which makes you wonder if there's a second one. We could be seeing some Skunk Void action here out of Jinteki. Certainly, we know from PD that Anoetic Void and Managarm Skunkworks is an incredibly strong combination of upgrades in a remote that just kind of shuts down
It is
any sort
expensive
of run.
to get in, and you need to get in twice, assuming you only can fire the Anoetic once, which I assume if you're doing Anoetic, you always aim to be able to use it twice.
Frequently, just once ends up being enough. If the server's well enough defended, if the server taxes 7 credits on the way in, and then the Managram fires and taxes another 5 credits or 2 clicks, it's very possible to just like not have enough anything.
Yeah. Also, you were correct on the slow cooking and an agenda. The Nisei Mark II with the additional and the round counter on it.
And we see the Nisei Mark II counter being used to deny an Into the Depths here. I think this feels a little aggressive to me, but I guess if there's the win here, it's fine.
Well, that was a fast game.
I mean, it was slower than the last game we saw. We just happened to come in on it very late.
Yeah, that is true. We saw very little of this very interesting game. There are 2 stables still out there.
Indeed. I will go not Ag's fun to watch. Let's go ask the other Ag. I will return shortly.
Sounds good.
All right, we are good to stream on table 1.
Very cool. I'm already here, and I can see that this table is much less empty than the table we saw earlier. We are seeing a Hermes, a Boomerang, a Mystic, and then an entire Breaker suite. Including a Leech.
That is a stranded Boomerang.
Oh, you are correct.
And very fun. I see viral weaponization in the corpse score area.
Wow.
A card that great pains were taken to ensure never killed anyone.
Not to worry, we fixed those mistakes with See How They Run. That's killed lots of people.
The anemone doing some more net damage here.
Okay, I mean the anemone is, and I'm not expecting Crim to be on very much recursion, especially with the stat loop here, right? This could bottom 2 cards, and now Ant 1 needs to think about the possibility that this is a Fuji.
Any 3 more net damage is a kill. Assuming that the next agenda isn't just the win that the corp is looking for.
Indeed, but it does mean that coming into score on server 1, like if that's a Fuji on server 1, I feel like it is not enough points to win.
That is very scary. Also, that is also just a kill, isn't it? And
Nope.
since the runner is on 2 agenda points, the Fuji isn't enough to win before then taking the net damage.
Quite a kill, right?
Isn't it? He's on 2 cards.
Fuji deals 2. Oh, with the data.
Right.
Scoring it is not.
Yeah. Right. I was still PE pilled and thinking about Fuji as dealing 3 damage. Right.
Yes. Yeah, that was a. There was no. Like if that's a Fuji, you either go through the dead loop and losing your 2 cards, and then touch it and take 2 net damage and die, or you don't, and then the corp
Die to the score.
You don't die to the score. You lose to the score. You do unfortunately lose the 8 agenda points, which is the real problem there.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it comes out to the loss in any case.
Yes.
I am not used to seeing Egg Infusion doing so much net damage, so I am genuinely unable to wrap my head around the other agendas not dealing in net damage when thinking about how they could still have won. So,
we see a lot of agendas that deal net damage here. We see the viral weaponization.
Indeed we do. That is like 5 net damage potentially.
I mean, it could be more. Like you just scored after the class act.
Right, class act, and then they are so smart, and then they trash 3 stone ship chart rooms to get extra net damage from the viral weaponization. That puts out the 6 more cards that they can.
So I think the
deal
trashing
net damage
snowships
against.
is pretty unlikely, but I'm sure I'm sure the class act line has come up for someone in some game.
Yeah. If we go into the realm of what is actually reasonable, I guess you are right.
All right. Well, I believe that does wrap up our round 2.
Very nice. How much time do the players have before round 3 begins?
We did see a nice 3-3 split of Corp wins and Runner wins this time around. Round 1 was not quite so even. Round 1 was 5 Corp wins and 1 Runner win. But again, this is a 12-person tournament with 6 tables. Our sample size is really small, and this should not be taken as representative of anything, really, to be honest.
Everyone's busy reading the spoilers.
The spoilers have been good to us, I must say. Maybe that's just me being very excited about today's spoilers in particular, but I am very happy.
Oh yeah, we get depraved asset spam support and a very funny looking mirror morph turn.
I've not actually gotten to go read poetry yet.
Did something drop after the 2 what's it called? The 2 articles today? I heard something drop, but I didn't see it yet.
Yes, I've heard poetry is out somewhere. I just haven't checked anywhere yet.
Huh? Oh, I'm looking here, and I think my girlfriend has actually just sent me the spoiler. I'm not sure if that is something that we can do on the stream here, but I can, I guess, just inform you about the spoiler if that is something that we are allowed to do here.
Send me a link in the commentary text channel. This is a NSG spoiler, so I think it's fine to share. We're not like eating someone else's lunch on this one.
Then just give me a moment to actually copy paste this from WhatsApp into Discord. There we go. This is the link that my girlfriend has sent me. So yeah. Yeah, that is from NSG. I have seen parts of it, but I have not fully read it yet.
Okay, we've got an on-score trigger. Yep.
Whenever you score an agenda, look at the top 3 cards of R&D. You may install one non-agenda card from among them, and whenever an agenda is stolen, you may install one non-agenda card from HQ. Poetry. Fashion fades, poetry is eternal. That is interesting. It is literally just install a million non-agenda cards. Notably, it doesn't say to reveal them, so if one were to actually keep an eye on which cards were installed by poetry, one could possibly get. I have no clue where I'm going with this, but I'm saying that we do not reveal the card that we install, so someone could cheat and install an agenda instead. That is cheating. We do not accuse anyone of cheating. Yeah.
I mean, sure, but what are they going to do? Score and get a game loss? Like, so much of Netrunner is already built around players aren't cheating. Like there are so many ways to cheat at Netrunner because there's so much hidden information. Like,
round 3 is up.
Oh, that's nice.
Players don't cheat is like, yes, players don't cheat.
I mean, to be fair, that is most card games, in all fairness.
All right,
although I must say
anything,
that, yeah.
Any of these matchups that you're particularly excited for?
Not as such, but I have heard that New Earth Hub is doing some sort of glacier build, so I'm down for that.
So actually, even if Near Earth Hub isn't doing some sort of glacier build, I'm really curious to see the Near Earth Hub like classic versus Arasana 2, because like Arasana's like, all right, I'm going to show with my Trojans and install them on your ice, and at any HSC you're going, I have ice?
I guess Near Earth Hub probably has like an ice in their deck somewhere.
Usually they've got like 3 to 6, but it's...
Yeah. Not a lot. We've been invited.
We are streaming.
Now the flip side is that, if as NEH you've only got 3 ice, you've only got 6 ice, it can be very hard to justify trashing one of your ice to trash the Trojans on it. But like, if you have an ice with 2 Cubans, 3 Cubans, you still need to trash that. Like, you can't let the runner just run for 6 credits. That's way too many credits. And more than enough econ to go trash all of your board. Every single part on your board.
That makes me ask the question, is there ever a line where, when running against an Arasana, you ever just say, fuck it, and just don't install any ice?
I don't think so.
I mean, this is the deck where you could get away with it.
Now, like, possibly in this matchup, you just go, I'm not going to install ice, and now you can't install your Trojans. I mean, I guess you can install Ica, but you can't have your urban art show because you have nowhere to put your art.
Yeah, but then they do get free access to HQ and R&D. Although they already get free access to your entire board, so does it really matter?
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's potentially you've got things like daily business show, right, to just keep your agendas on the bottom of R&D until you're ready for them.
That much does make sense.
Yeah, if you're on a murder plan, it's a lot easier to go iceless if you think your opponent can't deal with that. Because you're already doing that. You're just defending yourself with the trash cost.
Yeah, and especially like if things like the urban art vernissage and the Cuban are intended to be major components, and even like the environmental testing, right? Is sure, yes, used for coalescence. That's 2 installs. That's nice. You can like symbol chip back the Muse for coalescence again. You can sell these to ASOS potentially, but like if you can't install slap vandals, if you have a very hard time installing ICAs or botchlesses or all of these other Trojans, it can be harder and kind of awkward to actually trigger the environmental testings and get that big cash out.
Something to keep in mind.
That really propels the value forwards.
An interesting dynamic whether you want to play any ice then or not. Or maybe you play some ice and then just keep enough ice in hand to over-install once the Trojans come down. But difficult to have that, especially in decks with, as you mentioned, only 6 ice potentially. Another question then is, what ice does this list even run, or at least this archetype even run? I'm assuming ping is among them, but do you even bother running a diverse set of ice as gear checks, or do you just go with ping and, I'm not sure, Messnichvesto as just the 2 good ice in the set, so to speak?
I've seen actually NEHs, especially on a sort of more kill and tempo plan, look at things like Unsmiling Sarevna.
Mm-hmm.
3 sub-sentries are honestly pretty annoying. There's not, well, other than Ica and technically After Image and technically Adore, but despite the fact that we saw Adore earlier today, it's not really a killer I'm thinking about when I'm considering the ice suite that I'm running, right? And same for After Image, honestly. Mostly killers are paying 1 credit per subroutine or their revolver, and in both cases, like 3 annoying subroutines really is just kind of annoying. 3 subroutines is really good against Banhar. Like you can Banhar through an Unsmiling Sarevna. It's an option that's still 3 net damage. And Unsmiling is not especially expensive. And especially if you're on some sort of kill plan, the extra tags, the extra net damage really can add up.
All right, we're
I
seeing
think the
the
last sub is
first turn start.
I'm trying to remember the last sub on Smiling. I think it's Strawl. Yeah, and the last sub is Strawl, and like that's great. NEH sometimes can run out of cards if it's just doing install. That is a lot of cards, and a little bit of card draw to help fuel it. You know, sometimes nice, and the draw is technically optional. So if you don't want the cards, don't take them.
Yeah. Oh, we are seeing 2 clicks for credits to specifically play the Muse into the coalescence with
And get the environmental testing on the field, exactly.
Yeah. The environmental testing pops at 4, so we are already halfway there.
See the federal fundraising. Federal fundraising, another great way to sort of protect the agendas in R&D. Just don't leave an agenda on top of R&D. It can hang out other places. Wait
The
for coming
wage
down.
workers to get an extra install.
So instead of going install, you can just go install. Duckwork showing up, trashing the coal. Money, cards, what's not to love?
They can even now go in and trash the wage workers, probably without crying too much about the credits lost.
Credits are very dear in this matchup. Arson, I think this is a matchup where Arson would have really loved to be on Persia. Or to have Miss Bones imported, but I'm not sure either of those are going to be the case. Good to go challenge HQ. Maybe looking to get the Arsana install for free. Not likely to take it. Does find an opposition research, which I think we might see coming in next turn. We might not see coming in next turn. Ant 1 possibly looking to get up to the threat 3 before playing it for the big tag storm. But I suspect there's more than one oppo research. Might see the option simply coming in as a bit of a tempo play.
We are seeing an Amani Senai.
Amani Senai, kind of expensive to trash. Some options
But
here
also,
to call whether or not there
also
is.
fairly scary, but not a trash, yeah.
Yeah, sort of have to call whether or not there's going to be a score here. If there is a score here, which
huge hit on the bladderwort.
a deep dive, yes, deep dive's a very nice hit there.
Oh yeah, that one is big. No more digging for agendas for the run, at least with that specific one. Especially noting that, yes.
Especially very scary because if there's a score here and like there's a force, unfortunately, 1 credit short, which I was noticing. But if there's the force on the trace on the environmental testing, and the environmental testing gets bounced back with 2 counters on it, that's really painful because then you have to respend the 3 to install it, and all of the progress is undone. Especially now that I've seen the Amani Senai, I am absolutely looking to get this environmental testing patched out.
Very much so. We saw an artificial crypto crash as well. That is 7 credits just gone from the credit pool. And as you mentioned, credits are very dear in this matchup. So a very painful hit.
Now, I'm not really expecting it.
Go ahead.
I'm not really expecting it in this matchup. But Shaper does have a couple of very interesting tools against very wide asset boards. Shaper is the home of Marathon.
Marathon, remind me of what that did exactly.
Run a remote server. If it's successful, you get a click, and Marathon goes back to your hand.
Oh, right, I remember.
There's like slightly more words on it than that, but basically, run a remote server. It's clickless if it succeeds, and you get the Marathon back, so you can keep going. Just run all the remote servers. Maybe put down 3 Aeneas informants. If you get 3 Aeneas informants down and have a Marathon in hand against Eddie H, the game is very bad for them. I've been in this situation before,
imagine.
And yeah.
At least one player is having fun in that interaction. Oh, here comes the second environmental.
We're gonna see a tractor on the butterwort. So server 5 is known to be Amani Senai.
Oh, probably getting the redo for an extra Arisana trigger. Yes.
Yeah, let's just
they
drop
have agreed
a
to it.
Cuban or Ika or something.
That does make sense.
There's
Then
some
I
ice
click
if
to
you have
run.
stuff on it. That vandal, okay,
Yes.
sure.
Mostly probably just to get the environmental testing trigger.
Exactly, this is to take up the environmentals. And Arasana will potentially want to run this HQ eventually. I expect there to be another deep dive in the list. I think 2 is moderately standard.
Makes sense. The Maryland campaign shuffles itself back. We fundraise and we start to just install.
NEH, it's doing NEH things. NEH things are installing new servers.
Oh. And apparently playing Opera Research as well with the last click that they got from the wage workers.
Yeah, so I think Icarus has to just take a turn. Stuff here. Okay. This is a nice little line. Having the install, getting the first environmental testing popped, and that generates the credits. We go clear the tags. Nice little angle.
Yeah. Any chance that Arizona should have been afraid of the end of the line here?
I think it's a little bit unlikely just because we've seen the bladderwort. So like where I've seen 1 bladderwort, right, I'm expecting 3 bladderworts. Where I've seen 1 wage workers, I'm expecting more wage workers, and 3 bladderworts, 3 wage workers is 15 influence. So I don't think I'm scared of end of the line as Icarus, but certainly thinking about kill lines is an angle that
Probably bad to neglect the idea that that could be a thing.
And so the question now, right, is okay. So like NEH is not spending influence on spins because they're an NBN faction. They're spending 9 on bladderworts. They're spending 6 on wage workers. They've got 2 floating because NEH is a 45-17 for some reason.
Yes.
So maybe there's only 2 wage workers, and then there's space for the end of the line. But the question I'm asking myself, right, is how is this deck winning? Like what is the
Oh? Well, we did see an artificial crypto crash.
Mhm.
We just saw a Beal being
Yes.
got out. So maybe the idea is just to install the agendas, hope the runner doesn't run them, and then fast advance. And we see the Hollow Man. So who knows?
Yeah, this does support some passive advanced thought. Hollow Man is notably not a region. So I guess if you have way too much money, you could even we see the daily business show coming down. There should stop being agendas available for stealing except when Ant 1 wants them to be. But they won't be available for stealing then either because they'll be available for scoring and will be scored.
At least that is the hope. Assuming that the runner does get the marathon, they will, assuming the credits are good for it, be able to check every card that they put down, that the
I
ant
would
puts down. So
be baffled if Arasana is on Marathon. It is a really neat card in the Shaper card pool. There are not very many white asset decks right now, and no one is finding the card space to fit a Marathon in.
that much does make sense. Also, we just saw the overinstall that we did mention at the start of the game. The Slap Vandal has been slapped out of the board. So we are looking at one of the potentially 6 to 9 eyes
That could be as
being
little as
gone.
3, I think. I think it could be as little as 3 ice. I've seen speeds. There was actually a shout out in chat from Droid, I believe, who's on 1 VSA, 1 ping, 1 CRF now, which is just you get 1 ice of each type, so that they have to spend the clicks and the credits installing their full suite of breakers, and then you go, all right, well, my ice has done its job and it doesn't do anything now. That's fine.
Makes sense. And asking here if Icarus wants to take the action.
So this is potentially a ping question. So like you can, if you think this is a ping, you can hush the ping with Arasana, and then there's no tag on res. Might be what's being thought about here.
Although that would be the 1 credit of 4 that Arasana has access to. Although there is a fermenter on the board, so it's not quite as dire as I just made it seem.
Yes.
No res. That makes it easy. And what do they find in HQ? That's now the interesting question.
Do you ever see this spin res to pad HQ, which suggests that maybe there was an actual agenda there?
They did see a pad campaign that has not been trashed.
Seeing a score, crypto crash. Runner is broke. Runner has no fermenter.
How many
Runner is broke,
credits
has no
was the
fermenter.
runner on?
4.
Oh yeah. How many the runner was on
But
4
it was
credits
then
before?
Well, the runner was on 4 credits, and then you order the crypto crash first, so the runner goes to 0 credits, and then you order the Amani trace, and you trace 4 versus the runner's 0 credits, which seems pretty reliable. Fermenter goes back to hand, and
here we are. The runner with 0 credits and diving deep though. I guess with 1 credits there's no res.
yeah, no res.
The runner
Can't res VSA, can't res ping, can't res unsmiling.
That is a degree mill.
I think you have to take the shuffle back to steal, yeah. There's no money for Oppo.
At least not for the big Oppo.
I guess you could credit small Oppo, but sorry, you credit small Oppo because wage workers, but
Obviously not the most exciting way to play. The question also becomes, what is the actual payoff for the tags?
yeah,
In that
because
case?
at 4 credits, it's like clear credit fermenter or something, which is like, okay, you tagged them, everyone's broke now, let's move on with their day.
Fermenter is back in the game. 1 We are continuing to ferment.
Daily business show getting to work, protecting some cards.
Oh,
Credit. Yeah, Oppo.
well, it appears that I am a prophet.
Credit. Clear tag. This might just be a couple slow turns all around.
Yeah.
Which I think is fine for the corp, especially with these federal fundraisings, with this daily business show. There's still some very nice hand sculpting being done here to go find. Could also potentially consider checking archives, just because any. Could also consider taking a single off of R&D, but that's not very likely to generate anything because of the federal fundraisings.
True.
I think checking archives is vaguely interesting.
Oh, they popped the fermenter here. A 4-credit fermenter. So 1.5 credits per click for 2 clicks. Not quite the most efficient way to use that, but
That's gonna be a
compilation into
ping.
HQ.
I think I'm pretty strongly expecting this to be a ping res. I think this is a ping. Whether we're going to see the res, I think depends a lot on what's in HQ.
Big question is if it even is something worth resing here, even if it is a ping. Well, the corp believes it is. Going down to 0 credits again.
So I mean, this does functionally make the tags unfixable for Icarus, right?
Yeah, true enough. How much for a shipment from Vladimir? Was it 3 credits?
Shipment for that is 1 credit.
1 credit.
Yeah.
Potentially. Oh. That is the Rashida. Potentially this could be just the score out with the shipment then. Assuming a 3-5, which is unlikely, I guess.
Yeah, certainly a bunch of different lines here. So again, this is so much draw control out of Ant One with the federal fundraisings and the daily business show. I think you should have. I think they should have good access to whatever cards they're looking for.
Indeed. We are seeing a few installs here. Oh, and reinstalling an ice. Is there any chance that any of the 3, cards that have just been placed in server 14, 15, and 16 are actually agendas?
It's possible. Especially to see Slap Fiddle come down or Muse for Slap Vandal. Okay,
yep. Slap Vandal, yeah. And then they use the compilation to get
cup
there.
whatever card you see, run back and potentially trash the cup. I really wouldn't mind checking archives at some point, honestly. That is certainly a chain of hosted relationships.
Not quite the 7 that is mentioned in the flavor text, but still a lot. I'm assuming we see the... Oh, they don't seem to have the credits to actually use the compilation to access to additional cards.
Another
That is mildly painful.
Generating a little bit of hand pressure. Spin Doctor being rezzed. These cards, I hear, are good in my card game.
Indeed. We are probably not looking at a mill situation here, although the runner is down to 1 card in grip.
And there's the shipment,
Yeah, ship.
advance, and the 3 mil.
That is the game for the Corp, for the Near Earth Hub.
Near Earth Hub takes it over Arsana.
Yeah. Very interesting glacier gameplay in the sense that this glacier was horizontal instead of vertical.
I feel like glaciers are defined by their ice and how there's lots of ice in a glacier, and I was not feeling very cold here.
Well, you know what they say about the Earth warming up and the ice caps melting, so the Corp did with what they had, what they could. I'm assuming.
This is true.
I think the point of no return on global warming is when Corps stop playing more than 2 ice on any server. Then we'll know the glaciers are too thawed to come back.
Well, let's hope that
I mean, there's
elevation
not
gives
a
us some
whole
good ice
lot
then.
of true glaciers still floating around. Although, speaking of glacier, both table 4 and 5 are featuring Built to Last, which is possibly the iconic glacier ID in our card pool. Are we interested in checking either of those out?
I'm down. I'm seeing a Shaper and an Anarch. Is the
Yes,
Shaper an
Toshiko and
Arasana?
Arasana.
Yeah. Maybe we'll just look at another Arasana who's maybe more in her element against the
Against a deck with
Corp
ice.
that actually plays ice. Yeah. Look at the difference between those two. I guess a quick question as a new commentator: are we actually allowed to talk about the board state before we get permission to stream? Or is there a policy against talking about a table before we actually
I
get
would not talk
permission
about
to
the
show
board
it?
state before.
Makes total sense. Just asking to have certainty here. Although we did get
We're
permission.
good to stream.
We are good to stream on table 5.
Whichever number it was. I think it was 4. I don't know.
This is 5.
Makes sense.
Zeltana versus Kevin.
And we see 5 rest ice pieces here. With another 6th one on the board.
Yes, although we're seeing a couple of very interesting things here. So despite the fact that Kevinth is all the way down at 2 credits, which is a little bit awkward, and there is a giant pile of rest ice, which is also a little bit awkward. I do actually like his position a fair bit here. This 5 counter Amakua is very scary, and there's also the conduit threat.
Also, not to forget, there's a bad publicity on the board.
And the one bad publicity is going to help.
Yeah.
Although I'm still not sure I understand this run. Okay, breaks the ETR, but I'm not. Oh, that's a tree line, not a logjam. Yeah. Okay, sure.
That is very cheap and threatening what could be an agenda.
Mm-hmm. And very notably, we have not seen any Mavris. From the Corp yet, which means that this Amakua continues to be a problem, and it's a problem that can't really be solved by just advancing this ice yet, as long as Archives remains open. As Salt Honor, I'm potentially looking at lines where I can get some sort of ice on Archives, or finding this Mavris here, very good. That completely swings the state of this game. This is now a much, much better position for this corp, now that there is not a 5 counter on Makua that can be charged on archives.
At this point, we are even looking at an Arisana without any icebreakers. Well, disregarding the one Ika, but actually, technically, they can get into HQ, assuming that the top card is a sentry. Oh? Well, the corp is definitely taking advantage of the threat here. Of the threat that they do not have any icebreakers besides an Ika and a turtle.
Mm-hmm. Now, I believe most Arisanas do have at least singleton copies of a regular breaker suite.
True enough, but then the question becomes if they actually have it in hand, which is the big hurdle here.
Yeah, certainly he needs to do some drawing to go and find potentially the tools that he needs to pressure these servers. Also, as much as we talk about, yes, Kevin is low on credits, 3 is not very many credits, there are currently 5 credits on this Urban Art Vernissage. That is a great way to install things, lots of things, whether it's a cleaver, all of these.
We are seeing a run here, so presumably they have something to install.
I mean, it can be the other Cuban from hand, if nothing else.
Yeah.
That got bounced with the Vernissage.
Ah, and there's the Slap Vandal. Was the Slap Vandal just installed? Yeah, the Slap Vandal
was installed earlier this turn.
So yeah, they are getting into server 7, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm. With 2 clicks left, trashing the border control does not solve this problem. SDS probably trash the Cuban here, possibly trashes a conduit. Elects for the Cuban. And I mean, this is one of these signature things about Arisana skateboard tricks is like, you can think a server is secure, and Arisana has a lot of tools to say, no, actually, that server is not secure. Here's a botch list, here's a Slap Vandal, here's a Fazarum Entangler, whatever.
Yeah, so much for the turtle being the only way to break here. The run is happening again.
Yep. There is the potential for, say, botchless here to come down on this tree line. Is, I think, the breaking solution that I'm expecting.
Oh, we see a Muse.
Tree line at
Muse
7
installed
strength
for
is
free by using the Urban Art, yes.
Tree line at 7 strength is too strong for Slap Vandal.
Oh, you make a very good argument.
That's the reason why it was advanced is to take outside the Slap Vandal range. It is still within botchless range. Pressure Spike, also a very valid choice here.
Although a slightly more expensive choice. Although with the Urban Art, it is installed for
effectively free with Urban Art.
And that was the SDS?
No, that was just another map. The SDS was last turn and was hit the Cuban.
I must have missed that. Right. Yeah, I'm a virus. Well, the question is if the purge actually matters here. We have the pressure spike, and that gets you into R&D and Server 7. And HQ does have the Eka,
Yeah, but there's
although
two Winchester. Sorry, there's a hammer and a Winchester. That's a little
expensive, yeah.
awkward. Like, I guess booster are efficient, but 3 subs are kind of awkward to break, and the 2 to move it. I'm not really interested in challenging HQ.
Mm.
Logjam being advanced up to 7 is interesting to me. I'm not surprised to see the Ica return. I'm certainly very interested in reinstalling Ica for free on R&D sentries, if this is an R&D sentry. Since I think at this point I'm not really looking at HQ as the place I'm going.
Test. Am I back?
I can hear you just fine.
All right. I think something happened to my Discord again where it doesn't enjoy me talking or something, or hearing people talk. But it works again.
Excellent.
The Eka
Seeing
is
some
back
more
on the
setting
board.
up.
Yeah.
We're seeing some more setting up out of the runner. Environmental testing coming down, Trojan coming down, going out, getting the 1 turtle counter. Maybe it matters for something at some point. Doesn't really hurt.
I mean, Kevin is nicely ahead now, so there isn't much he needs to worry about at this point.
So it's interesting because Zaltaner's feeling comfortable enough on credits that he's manually advancing up this logjam, and if this logjam gets up to like 11 strength, it starts to be a bit noticeable.
Especially since Botulus only comes in with 1 counter, so you would need to let the Botulus cook for like 3 turns to actually get it through the logjam, at which point the pressure spike does cost 5 credits. No, it costs even more. 4 credits for the strength, and then 3 for the subroutines.
So I wonder if we're going to see...
Trash. Always painful, yes.
I wonder if we're going to see the logjam taken up to 11 counters here and go, yeah, this is just fine. You just can't afford to make that many R&D runs.
Oh, we also see another ice on the big stack. And Server 7 is being advanced. And this is the last piece of the icebreaker puzzle. Oh, there are 2 last pieces of the icebreaker puzzle.
And very well positioned. Still has 1 click remaining to come back after the border control pump if that ends up being a thing.
With the lack of a res on the first ice there, it is possible that in Server 7 is not an agenda. Oh, no, they're getting kicked out.
Very nice line to run back with Hannah here. And now the second border control is not quite sufficient.
Just click and trash the Hana to run a third time. Yep,
Exactly.
there we go.
Or potentially just float the tag and run it for the third time, but I like the line to trash the Hana and then just clear the tag clicklessly and still have a click left to go do whatever.
Yep,
And
that's
find
the agenda.
another off-world.
That gets the runner to 7 points versus the Wayland 0.
The office might have been off-world, but unfortunately the office was also on board.
Yeah. That does look like a painful game for the Corp. Getting a bad publicity from the mining accident, and while rezzing a bunch of ice, not being able to push through an agenda. Very painful. I sympathize very heavily.
All right, well, that finishes up table 5.
And we were looking at. Oh,
We've only got 2 minutes left in the round.
Yeah, we've only got 2 minutes left in the round, so I think we're just going to hang out and wait. And
Sounds
I believe
good.
we are actually heading into a break after this round.
How
yes,
long
we're going
do
to
the
a 30-minute break
take?
after this round. Well, this one's going to be 30 minutes.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so we got everyone everyone's still taking their time on finishing the rest of the tables. But it looks like I could have sworn we could see corp standings. But oh well, looks like it looks like Ice Cream College is doing quite well on Sports Medal and Toshiko. We'll have to check in on a Sports Medal game. We haven't seen either Sports Medal yet.
Yeah, I believe they're being piloted by Econometry and Ice Cream College, both very good players. I can't remember what Ice Cream College has won. I believe he's won a couple of AMTs or maybe the online districts. I know Wikinometry won the 2023 U.S. Nationals East.
That is very impressive.
All right, and it looks like we might be going to the end of the round, coming into our break. So perhaps we'll
If you're headed into a break.
standings. Perhaps we'll discuss the standings when we get back. But I think we're ready to take it to a break, everyone.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, why don't you put us on a break screen, and then I'll be back in like 20 minutes.
All right.
Sounds very
See
good.
you all in 30 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Apologies, I hit the lunch rush, and it was very important that I not abandon my lunch.
I feel you. Lunch is very important.
I have a chocolate chip cookie. This is kind of like lunch, and kind of entirely unlike lunch.
Well, a chocolate chip cookie, if nothing else, is very delicious.
This is true.
We got to get into a game, though.
Indeed. Are any of these matches jumping out to you?
They have not started yet, I guess, or have they started?
No, they should be underway.
Huh.
Or maybe not.
I see table 4 is still just one person.
So we could try and look at table 1. I don't think we've seen sports yet.
I'm down.
All right, I'll poke my head in.
I guess we actually have a minute.
Wizard.
Round 4 starts in 6 minutes.
Perfect. Then we are not too late. Out of interest, Cephalot Wizard. I assume you had the name before the Kraken was teased?
I've had this name for years.
Well, must be very nice to get something specifically made for you then.
Oh, yes. Now, if I was the secret shadow narrative director of NSG, I wouldn't tell anyone, but there would be signs.
Like this
yes.
color changing octopus. I think it's an
Yes.
octopus.
Probably.
I'm not sure I could distinguish between like an octopus and, for instance, a cuttlefish or some variety of squid, but I'd expect
Sadly, I am not the maker of SpongeBob, so I cannot tell you whether that is a squid or cuttlefish or salmon.
I would expect squid art that wants to be read as art of a squid to feature some of the characteristic visual signifiers of squids, like the extra long separate tentacles. And
Sorry,
like general shape, this shape feels more cuttlefish or octopus to me.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I was trying to resolve the duplicate YouTube stream thing.
I'm just saying that I don't think this is a squid, because I think